Greetings viewers, today we're telling you a bit more about futures. Now as you know, prices fluctuate every day, they go up and down like a roller coaster. And sometimes we regret buying something today when you could have bought it previously at a cheaper price. Well, you might be interested in futures because what futures stands for is a futures contract. We'll be telling you a bit more about what it means, the definitions, advantage and disadvantage of futures. Now as we said before, futures stands for a futures contract, which involves a legal agreement between a buyer and a seller to buy or sell an underlying commodity such as, for example, oil. Now where does the futures characteristic come in? Basically, the agreement is based on an actual transaction happening in the future, and hence the name futures. Anyway, we shall now move on to why people buy futures, the advantages and disadvantages of doing so. Now let's take a look at an example. Let the commodity be oil in this case. So person A is the buyer of the futures contract and person B is the futures contract seller. So person A predicts that oil prices will rise within the next 2 years. So this means that in 2 years' time, based on the contract, person B will sell the oil to person A at today's price. And depending whether the oil prices have risen or fallen in the next 2 years, either person A or person B will gain a profit. So that's the way the futures contract works. So let's take a look at some of the advantages of purchasing futures contracts. So futures actually provide the ability for people to hedge against each other for future market conditions. The futures market is fairer than other markets as it is harder to get leaked information. So let's take a look at some of the disadvantages to purchasing futures contracts. Firstly, losses can amount to a greater amount than your initial margin used to open the position. Additional capital through margin calls may be necessary if the market goes against your position. Thus, there is a high risk of making losses due to leverage. Anyway, in conclusion, only trade futures have a strong ability to predict future trends of prices in the future through proper analysis and research of the fundamentals. The study of technicals, which includes chart analysis, is also vital. I hope you've learned a lot about futures through this video, and goodbye.